Now here we are at the mega cichlid tank. It's just down there. I'll take you downstairs and show you in a minute. But I've just tested up the water and there's basically no ammonia. There is a little bit of nitrite in the water at the moment. This has not had a service for a very long time. There is a tiny bit of nitrate. There's nice high pH. KH is about 6, which I'm happy at, but the GH is basically 0. So I'm going to need to add the GH urgently. And the way I'm going to raise the GH, I'll chuck one of these in. This is not going to be enough to do the job, but it will set us in the right direction. It's important that we have a good GH level. That helps the immune system of the fish and promotes their body slime. Does a whole lot of good stuff. So we want to get the GH up, and adding a kilo of it isn't going to do much to this tank. So in a perfect world, it would be good to get it retested and then add more like 5 kilograms of it, then get it retested until we can get the level up. Preferably say around 10 would be good. So this is the actual aquarium. I haven't seen it for a very long time. The tin foils are looking good, look very nice. The Oscars are having a good time. There's the Homo sapien, more homo than most. Silver dollars, angels, zebra, ACI, parrot. Let's see what else we can find in here. Jaguar cichlid, angelfish, big plecostomus, and then as more fish surface, I'll point them out for you. So considering it's been so long since I've serviced the tank, I'm relatively happy about the water quality. There is a little bit of nitrite, but I'm pretty happy with that. We've got a green terror. Oh, and there's a buttercofferi. You know you've got a big tank when there's a pylon in it. Now, buying bulk fish food can be very economical, and for large tanks like this, there's no real alternative, but it's really important that you keep it sealed. This is what I do not want to see, because if you're not, see, these Danichis are wonderful because they come with these, so what you really want to do is flatten it. You want to get all the air out of it, and then you want to ziplock it. So there's as minimal air in there as possible. These bags are way better than jars because you can get all the air out of it. And basically how effective or how long it lasts is absolutely governed by oxygen. So you're probably better off transferring a little bit of it into a small container and use the small container so you're not having to open this all the time. But if you are having to open this all the time, really want you to keep it sealed and keep the oxygen out of it. So this situation now is great because there's minimal oxygen, but oxygen is what allows the oxidizing of the food, and that's what makes it go stale. Otherwise, you're feeding very high quality food to your fish, which can be depleted in quality just because you haven't closed it. And here we found a dovii. Beautiful looking fish, and you would never believe that a dovii can get along so well with angelfish, but because the tank's so big, you can basically break all the rules. Obviously, it is not advisable that you put fish in that can fit in the mouth of the largest fish, but this guy here, they could very easily fit in the mouth of that dovii, but they're not getting eaten just because they're obviously well fed enough and because the tank is large enough to allow this to occur. So the bigger the tank, the less of those rules you've got to follow. Get away with anything in a big tank, and biologically everything occurs much slower. That's why big tanks are much easier to look after. And it's been literally months since I've been here, and it would get no love. So you can go months and months. So that's the evaporation rate over months and months. Different seasons and different times can definitely affect the evaporation rate. Sometimes the evaporation rate is intense, and sometimes the evaporation rate's not so bad. Oscars look very happy together. There's the angelfish. So you would not believe an angelfish goes with a dovii. Oscars, and they're all happy. There you go, you can't believe everything you read in a book. Big tanks, you can get away with murder. Now with an aquarium, if the water evaporates and you fill it up again, that is not a water change. A water change is when you take water out, and it's really best to do a water change using a gravel cleaner through the bottom, because the bottom will be very dirty. So it's much better to take all the crap out of the bottom before, but besides taking the good water out of the top. And then when you replace it again, that's a water change. Now, when you're refilling your aquarium and you've just had top up, you're just topping up, you only really need to add water ager. It's a good idea to keep an eye on your GH and KH, but as the water evaporates, the GH will tend to accumulate. So you want to keep an eye on that. But then when you're doing a water change, you want to raise your GH and KH, because when you take the water out, you're assumably taking out the GH and KH out of the water. So a top up, you often only need water ager. A water change, you definitely need to add GH and KH, but it is depending on the level. So testing the level is really important every water change, so you know how much GH or KH to add. Now these cords here are airline cords, and people tend to put air stones on the bottom of the airline cords because it breaks up the bubbles and makes them look nicer and tends to make it not as noisy. If you have just a pipe going into the water like that one, it's very effective, debatably better, but it doesn't tend to look as nice, and the bobbling tends to be a little bit noisier. So the air stone will just distribute the air better and look nicer and tend to be quieter. Now we're just doing a gravel clean using our world famous Australia's biggest gravel vacuum. Completely unsubstantiated claim, but as far as private households are concerned, I would suggest that there are very few, if any, gravel cleaners this big in Australia. Not often you need a gravel cleaner this big, but when you've got a big job, you need a big tool. So what this gravel cleaner is doing is sucking water out of the aquarium. So that's going down to the drain, and then the water is getting sucked up through the gravel, and then all the dirt is coming out of the gravel as the water moves through it, and then the dirt, which is lighter than the gravel, or coral rubble in this case, is all getting sucked out. Now when you're doing a water change, doing a gravel clean is the most important thing, because basically why would you want to take the clean water out of the top when you can take the dirty water out of the bottom? It means that your water change is far more economical. So no matter what aquarium you've got, I would recommend using a gravel cleaner when you do your water changes. So when you're gravel cleaning, you want to try and get underneath the rocks and things, and don't just gravel clean the main area. You want to move a few rocks, you want to get in underneath, and that's how you get huge amounts of waste out, because the amount of waste that gathers underneath a rock is pretty amazing. So you'll see at the moment he's just trying to clear a new space, and then you watch when he digs that gravel cleaner back in again in a space that hasn't been done for a while, and then it will get super dirty. That's why it's good to do spring cleans every now and then. Spring clean allows you to get in underneath the rocks and get all that crap out, because this crap obviously has an impact on the quality of the water. Because if you look at all that like literal crap which is constantly in your aquarium just stuck underneath the rocks, we'd really rather see it all removed. Now in an aquarium, always be aware of condensation. That's why you want to try and make sure that your cabinet and hood has as much ventilation as possible, because condensation, particularly in saltier aquariums, certainly love to destroy everything. So ventilate, ventilate, ventilate. Now because there's nitrite in this aquarium, I'm going to try increasing the water flow. So I've got a pump here which pumps 35,000 litres of water. So I'm going to chuck that in there, and it's going to put it down and blow it straight up, and it's going to have an extreme amount of water flow. And I'm hoping that this increased amount of water flow is going to increase water flow, surface tension, decrease surface tension, and increase redox potential, which I'm hoping will drop the nitrite and will be absolutely wonderful for the fish to swim around. You know, we'll see what happens. Here's this beautiful angelfish. Once again, loving life in this monstrous aquarium. So we just installed that 35,000 litre pump just there, and because the outlet was so wide, the power is probably not as powerful as we expected, but it is going to be moving a lot of water, so it's still a very good thing to have. I can hear a slight sound from it, which I'm slightly disappointed about. But I am hoping that, considering it's a brand new pump out of the box, I'm hoping that once it forms a little bit of bio slime, and I'm hoping it actually quietens down. It's certainly not loud, but I certainly can hear it. So anyway, in the meantime, it's turning over a whole lot of water, 35,000 litres an hour. Now you want to watch where your pump's pumping, because if your pump pumps through an air stone, if it sucks into an air stone or pumps through an air stone, then quite often you get micro bubbles. Well, angelfish is a little bit skinny, so I think we're going to have to arrange some smaller size pellets. So this is the small pellet, which might be a little bit big for that angelfish. So I think we need to also add some baby pellets, which should be right for that angelfish. Also, I'm a bit worried about that fella there. He's a little bit skinny too. You can see the belly is going up under the belly. This guy's okay, just that one's a bit skinny. But sometimes fish getting skinny can also be a signal of how old they are. It's all done now. The tank's all looking nice and cleaner. Whenever we leave a job, generally the tank looks worse than when we got here. And that's because we unsettle everything. I think nothing better than a clean fish tank. Obviously still waiting for the top to fill up, but that'll take some time. Now, anytime you finish a job, especially a big aquarium service job like this, double checking is the most important thing. Make sure all your hoses are off and make sure that all your power's on. Double checking is much better than leaving the job and finding out that you've forgotten to turn your pump on. Particularly if you're servicing your own aquarium and you've had a few beers while you're doing the aquarium service, that can make you particularly forgetful. So I have had people come in all sorts of trouble that have forgotten to do things like turn hoses off and turn plugs back on again, because by the time they finish servicing their aquarium, they're half pissed. Just something to be aware of.